Patek's complications often go under the radar, and that's a shame because that's where some of the best value buys can be found. This 5172G Salmon chronograph is currently available for $74,000, which is $50,000 under retail. Today, I'll be telling you what I like and dislike about the 5172G. I'll compare it to competitors like the 1815 chronograph, as well as its predecessor, the 5170. Let's jump into it. The Patek 5172 was first released with a blue dial to replace the 5170, before later being refreshed with a salmon dial in 2022. While both the 5172 and 5170 feature the same in-house Patek chronograph caliber, I feel that the 5172 comes with a bunch of design updates that makes the watch feel a lot more exciting. When you think about other manual wind dress chronographs, the main ones are the Lange 1815 chronograph and VC Corne de Vache. Yet, these watches along with the Patek 5170 all have a very traditional feel to them. In contrast, the 5172 takes vintage design cues like the syringe hands and combines them with a bright salmon dial and modern-looking numerals with good lume. It's a tasteful mix of heritage and modern elements, which is unfortunately not something you can say about every Patek that comes out nowadays. When it comes to case and lug design, I feel that the 5172 is best in class. Not only is it a big step up from the 5170, but I also feel it's much better than the 1815 and Corne de Vache. The main highlights here are the vintage-inspired step lugs and pump pushers. When you look at the side profile of the 5172, you can see the box sapphire crystal and a clever mid-case design that hides thickness and makes the watch feel much sleeker on the wrist. Compare this to the 1815 and Corne de Vache, where the mid-case feels so much chunkier. The only potential criticism of the 5172 is the 41mm diameter. Personally, it looks and wears great on my 17cm wrist. But if you have a smaller wrist or one that is not as flat, I do recommend trying one on first. If I told you to visualize a high-end chronograph movement, the first thing that jumps to your mind is probably Lange. It has that sense of complexity, although I know some collectors call it a complex mess. Honestly, the in-house caliber CH29535PS in the 5172 is no slouch either. It's a much cleaner Lamania-esque design that is rather bulletproof from experience. I also personally prefer the pusher feel of the 5172 to that of Lange's chronographs. With this watch, winding it is a bit easier, although you get less of that clicky feedback from the crown. The main drawback is that while the 1815 chronograph has a flyback function, the 5172 does not. Functionally, it doesn't really matter to me because the most I would ever use a chronograph for is cooking instant noodles, but I still think it's something worth noting. Overall, how does the 5172 compare to its competitors? In terms of looks, the 5172 has the most character and is the watch I'd wear more than the 1815 or Corne de Vache. The salmon dial is beautiful, the case and lugs are best in class, and it sits well on my wrist too. As for the movement, it's a nice clean look and the pusher feedback is great. I think the main competitor to this watch might be the rare 5170P with the blue dial and baguette diamond hour markers. However, that comparison might be unfair since the 5170P is also $40,000 more expensive. Speaking about market pricing, the 5172G is dated 2023 and comes with original box and papers. It's currently asking $74,000 at Legacy Watch Co., which is comparable to the $71,000 price tag for our 1815 chronograph. However, the 1815 is 3 years older and much more worn. The Patek 5172G is a good value buy. For one, our watch is the cheapest on market at $50,000 under retail. But in my opinion, the more important factor when purchasing a watch is the potential depreciation. Depreciation on this particular watch should be surprisingly limited. Using the older 5172G Blue as a benchmark, we see those moving in today's market in the 60K range. Those watches are not only a few years older, but also less desirable than the Salmon dial on this version. At the end of the day, the 5172G is a good value buy. If you're thinking about buying this watch and keeping it for the long term in your collection, then it's better to go gray and save $50,000. If you're the type to change watches in a few years or less, the depreciation at max on this watch should also be quite limited. It's also important to consider that Patek is by far the most liquid high horology watch brand. So if there's ever a rainy day when you suddenly need the money, this is a much better choice than a Lange that typically depreciates more and moves slower. This is the point of the video where some viewers will leave a comment about how you shouldn't care about values or depreciation when buying a luxury watch. But personally, unless you have a magical bottomless bank account, I think it's good to keep these factors in mind when spending this sort of money on a non-necessity luxury product. Anyways, if you're interested in this watch, check out the link in the description. I hope you enjoyed this video and thank you for watching.